Hello and you're welcome to Business Daily on Trust TV. On the show, we take a look at stock market reports, keep you posted on the latest business news, and also take a look at major economic policies and how they affect the average Nigerian out there. My name is Chamun Dabeng, and these are the headlines for today. On the mining front, mineral titles have fallen 37% as insecurity threatens the sector. Telecom subscribers are suing the federal government over multiple taxation. More to come on these stories later on. But first, we'll take a short break, and when we get back, we're going to be taking a look at the equities market watch. Don't go anywhere. You're welcome back to the show, and we're moving on to equities market watch, and we're starting off with the NGX. Now, the Nigerian bourse closed at 54,213.09 basis points. That's an increase of 0.4%, and there were 4,017 deals with a volume of 268.01 million and a value of 2.354 billion naira and an equity cap of 29.528 trillion naira. Moving on to African markets. Now, the JSE, that's Joburg's bourse, closed at 80,240.92 basis points. That's an increase of 0.55%. And GSE, that's Ghana's bourse, closed at 2,342.62 basis points, decreasing by 2.54%. Now, a 100 basis point increase in the benchmark lending rate was announced by Ghana's central bank. And of course, this was in a bid to curb inflation. So that's what we're seeing here, the effects on the GSE. Now we're going to be moving on to the U.S. markets. Now, a lot of interesting activity going on with the U.S. market. The Feds recently raised their benchmark interest rate by 25 basis points. So there's a little hope for investors out there. Now let's take a look at Dow Jones, which closed at 33,926.01. That's 0.77% decline. S&P 500 at 4,136.48, down by 1.04%, and Nasdaq is down by 1.59% with 12,200.82. Now, like I said, there's been a lot of activities so far. Following the release of the jobs report on Friday, Wall Street stocks have actually declined, and the 10-year Treasury yield increased to 3.5%, increasing more than 12 basis points. Now, moving on to the European market. Last Thursday, the European Central Bank equally raised interest rates. They raised theirs by 50 basis points, and said a next increase could actually be anticipated, taking a look at global inflation and looking at the situation worldwide. Now, taking a look at the FTSE 100 is up by 1.04% at 7,901.8. CAC 40, 7,233 has remained unchanged. DAX 15,476 also has remained unchanged. A lot of activities there also. Now, the European equity markets were headed for a lower open on Monday, extending global routes as stronger than expected U.S. jobs data suggested that the Federal Reserve has more room to hike interest rates. Now, this has, caused a little bit of a stir in different markets. Even the Chinese market is responding to the report that was recently released. Now, let's move on to the Asian market. Now, Nikkei closed at 27,693, is up by 0.67%. Shanghai 3,238, down by 0.76%. And Kospi 2,438, down by 1.7%. And on the commodities front, Brent is going higher. It has a 1.01%. Can we move on to the commodities market, please? Brent closed at $80.72, up by 1.01%. Silver closed at $22,498, up by 0.66%. Please, can we get the commodities market? Gold closed at $1,874.64, up by 0.51%. Wheat $762.32, up by 0.74%. Cocoa closed at $2,569, down by 0.54%. And palm oil closed at $3,851, up by 2.67%. So it seems to be really good around the commodities market area. Let's move on to Crypto Watch. Now, Bitcoin last closed at $22,848, and that went down by 0.18%. Ethereum closed at $1,632, up by 0.82%, and Binance closed at $324, down by 0.97%. And that's all for the equities market watch. Now we're going to be moving on to our business roundup for today. The federal government has been sued by telecom customers under the aegis of the National Association of Telecom Subscribers over its proposal to impose a 5% excise fee on telecom services, as well as the ongoing the lawsuit is against the implementation and imposition of excise duty, as well as the ongoing imposition and execution of a value-added tax on telecom services. This is according to the national president of NATCOMS, Adeolu Ogunbanjo. Now, the lawsuit is asking the courts to nullify the imposition of the excise tax on telecoms and declare VAT on those services to be illegal and unconstitutional. Over a 5-year period, the total number of mineral titles granted to mining corporations fell by 36.63%. According to a research, 1,438 mineral titles were given in 2021 compared to 2,815 in 2016. The Minister of Mines, Steel and Development, Olamilekan Adegbite, included this in the presentation packet. Now, a further revelation in the paper was the issuance of 2,258 mineral titles in 2016, 2,429 in 2017, 2,104 in 2018, and 1,620 in 2019. Additionally, 1,438 mineral titles were issued between January and October 2022, which is a 48.92% decrease from the number of mineral titles issued in 2016. Now, that's all for Business Roundup. Today on the show, we're going to be discussing economic diversification. Now, since 1956, that's when Nigeria actually discovered oil, the country basically became the poster child for crude oil wealth curse because the nation became highly dependent on crude. So since then, the mantra economic diversification basically became like a sing-along with the different government officials, Nigerians themselves calling out for economic diversification and depending less on oil. So far, there have been policies that have been implemented to make that actually possible. But has the country really reached true economic diversification? Joining me in the studio today is economist Dr. Emeka Okengu. You're welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, what do you think about this, the mantra economic diversification? We've heard it in several different coffers. Now, what do you think? Have we really achieved, or are we even close to achieving economic diversification?
Well, it was a good thing you started by mentioning oil. Let's even look at oil. Have we been able to, achieve any kind of, value processing in the oil? Because when you're talking about diversification, you can actually diversify your oil economy by actually now value processing it. Let's even start from there. I remember all the while you were speaking about oil, you were just fixated on crude, which you call the cost. So I don't think we've achieved diversification in the real sense that it can be sustainable and beneficial. Now look at the mining sector sites you showed. Is that a mine? As far as I'm concerned, that couldn't be anything better than where you have scavengers, using shovels to create more environmental problems. And then you're issuing licenses against such operations. I would have wanted, whoever that put up that clip, because that's obviously Nigeria, to maybe get a picture of what happens in other climes, maybe South Africa. So there are just rules, there are demands that we are not, unfortunately, either not understanding or not implementing or just we're blind to. So we use words very recklessly and carelessly. We are not an economy, and it's important I restate that.
We're not an economy?
No, not yet.
Wow, at least they've been calling Nigeria a mono economy, but you say we're not an economy.
Well, you can't be an economy when you don't even own the oil you trade. You don't own Shell, do you? You don't own Enron, do you? What you have is some kind of production sharing agreement. It's deep, for whoever can understand it. But we can create an economy, by understanding the demands of the substructure. It is your substructure that should be able to drive your superstructure. In other words, it is your economy and economics that now drives your politics. What we have in Nigeria is that we have, the tail wagging the dog. That's the kind of economy, if you may, that we have in Nigeria.
All right, we'll take a short break, and when we get back, we're going to take a deeper look in our discussion. Don't go anywhere.
Now, as part of efforts to support Africa's goal of strengthening...
Now, looking at the activity chart, as you can see right here, a total volume of 130...
Inherited a Boko Haram crisis that at that time was restricted to Yobe.
How secure are they? You can see security men with blood.
This is the road leading up to the...
Or really, if you look at England squad, you are looking at EPL, you are looking at their names. You are not looking at...
You're welcome back to Business Daily on Trust TV. My name is Chamun Dabeng, and I'm here with economist Dr. Emeka Okengu, and we're currently discussing economic diversification. It's a term that many of us have actually heard. We've talked about expanding Nigeria's economy, so that's what we're focusing on, and that's expanding the bracket. Where are we not touching? What are we missing? How do we achieve true economic diversification? Before we go on and hear from our guest, we do have a report for you, so let's take a listen.
The minister observed that the present administration economic policies are making positive impact, with Nigeria's gross domestic product GDP now ranked third globally. He says while the nation struggles to add value to local produce highly sought after at the global market, crops such as sesame, ginger, hibiscus and urea are currently boosting profits from Nigeria's non-oil sector.
We've gone into partnership into an agreement with the African Development Bank, which is funding various states with regard to setting up special agro-processing zones on a large scale. And as a ministry, we have embarked on setting up small and medium-scale processing zones in the various towns and villages with a view to harnessing the produce that cannot get to the market. They take them to the processing centers, they are processed and then stored for export.
Minister of Information and Culture Lai Mohammed warns purveyors of fake news and disinformation in the social media space to stop, or government will go after them as their activities pose a threat to the forthcoming elections.
With about 3 weeks to the presidential and national assembly elections on February 25th, I can say unequivocally that there has been a worrisome and astronomical increase in the use of fake news and disinformation, making this a clear and present danger to the success of the elections. This increase is undoubtedly the work of some destabilizing agents, some of them linked to the opposition. They are churning out fake news and disinformation on an industrial scale. Their sole aim is to destabilize the electoral process and put the nation into crisis.
There has been increased spread of fake news and disinformation in the social media a few weeks to the commencement of elections in the country.
All right, there you have it. Well, social media discussions aside, let's focus on economic diversification. There's talks on ginger, there's talks on different agricultural produce. Now, this is something that used to be a major part of Nigeria's economy. Agriculture used to contribute about 57% of Nigeria's GDP back then, but it all fizzled out. Where do you think we went wrong in this area?
We went wrong by not understanding the agriculture that was giving us that high volumes in our GDP. What we were doing is that we were exporting cash crops, basically, timber, cocoa, tobacco, name it. And we were exporting to specific markets that had that demand. It wasn't our game. So it was a buyer's market. It wasn't the seller's market. And the moment the buyer didn't need it anymore, we didn't have the state of mind to be able to think it again and then probably revert to start planting things, okay, that will first and foremost make us food secure as a country and then begin to now earn, some foreign exchange as it were. The minister had mentioned the hibiscus. Hibiscus is a zobo in our local parlance. Now, where have you seen a farm of hibiscus in a commercial level? You're from the north. Okay?
That's actually a very good question.
Yes, he mentioned ginger. Apart from the little pockets of farmers around the Kaduna area that farm ginger, where is any commercial farm that you're producing ginger? But instead of now looking at that production part, okay, you're looking at the marketing part. You're trying to put in processing machines here and there, to start now making certain that you can be able to yield. And this is a federal government program. Where are the subnationals? Because I would have wanted a situation where the chairman of the governors forum would have also said, okay, because the land, the federal government doesn't own land, Chamong. It's important you know that. So sometimes in preaching, we should learn to talk, walk the talk, because it's easy for you to come and then talk about economic diversification and how much are you earning from ginger, how much are you earning from sesame. Now you come to the mining sector, which you showed. That thing you showed there was a mine. I'm in the mining sector, so I understand it clearly. That's the best you can get in Nigeria. Now, how are you able to get any value out of people that are digging with shovels, and the axes? It gets to a point where you can no longer go further. Either you hit what they call the bedrock, okay, or you get to the aquifer level where that place starts flooding. So I think the problem in Nigeria is that we speak a lot of grammar, when it comes to economic development. We've not been able to develop a master plan that can be able to take us out of where we are. Okay, as an economy, if you may, that runs on what you call the subcontracting production model, okay, to what can now become a real production-driven, production-based economy. That's, I think, where the challenge is.
All right, so now the manufacturing sector is being brought into this discussion. Now, we've talked about economic diversification. Now, the manufacturing sector itself. We've had situations where we produce certain things, for example, crude oil. But at the end of the day, it ends up being exported and then imported back into the nation as a finished product. Yes. We've seen this with cotton. We've seen this with tobacco. We've seen a lot of these things going on. So what do we need to do in this area to sort of help out the manufacturing sector? How much can it contribute to our economic diversification?
You just hit it. I mean, the answer is in your question, and you're just giving very clear examples, okay? If you're talking about cotton, it doesn't even end at lint. Okay, and I tell you, the new deal in the manufacturing of fabrics is no longer cotton. It's what they call non-woven, and non-woven comes from petrochemicals. All right. Now you would need to have very deep pockets to be able to buy 100% cotton product. Okay, so people are evolving, and this is the role where technology comes into our economy. For everything you've mentioned, I mean, way back in those days in northern Nigeria, you had Zamfara having over more than 18 gineries. Not even one, I stand to be corrected, is operational. They are standing, but they're relics. Okay? Now, ditto for every other thing. Tobacco, you used to have, the biggest tobacco research institute in Zaria. And if you are driving from Kaduna, almost half or 3/4 of your journey into Kano, you are seeing tobacco farms on both sides of the road. Now, they're no longer there. So it's just not wishing. You must be able to walk the talk. That's the point I'm trying to make.
All right, so I would like to come back to the non-oil sector. Now, we've had several government officials. As a matter of fact, Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, had also announced that the non-oil sector was doing better and contributing more to Nigeria's GDP. But there is an obvious decline in the contributions that oil itself has been making. Now, regardless of the fact that the non-oil sector is coming up, is this really something that Nigerians should be celebrating about?
Let's break it down. Now, what is non-oil sector? Non-oil sector is the agri sector. Non-oil sector is your entertainment sector. Non-oil sector is your services sector. So tell me which one is operating optimally. Is it the farms? Because of the kind of rain-fed agriculture that we are still practicing in Nigeria, even if you didn't have insurrections and insurgencies, you can't plant on those lands. Most of them are burnt out. We've lost over 12,000 kilometers of land, in northern Nigeria to desertification as a result of climate change. All right? So when you say they are doing better, it's doing better. And I keep giving this example. You have 6 kids, and you manage to cook half cup of rice for them from not eating at all. Are you doing better? Are you doing well? The children are still starving. So it's important that in thinking things through, you're able to understand where the gaps are, and then be able to now find what can make you fill those gaps. If you want to do rain-fed, then you must be able to find a way to get around, the rains not falling. And this is, some other people now will now use the open drip technology. Do we have it? So if you don't begin to do the things that can be able to support your production optimally, okay, this is why you have, at a period, you can buy a basket of tomato for maybe 10,000 or 5,000, and another period you're buying the same bag of tomato for 60,000. Do you know what has happened? You have not been able to now sustain your production because of, your planting, pattern. So if you don't have that understanding, you will keep having these fluctuations that are avoidable. But at the center of our mistake is STI, science, technology, innovation. That will want to make the difference.
All right, so still with the oil sector itself, as much as we talk about diversification, as much as we talk about the non-oil sector coming up, oil is still making major contributions, over 70% when it comes to Nigeria's exports, and foreign exchange earnings is coming majorly from oil and gas. Now, I would like to know your comments on this.
Which is why it's very easy for us to get into recession. You can predict a recession. If the price of oil dips today to under $30, we'll enter into recession. End of story. It appreciates to over $37, we get out of recession. So it's become that driver. It's become the monster. It's become the bull in the China shop. All right? Now, it is not oil. It is crude oil. Because you have grease oil, you have fuel oil, you have gas oil, you have so many other things, benzene, acetylene, that can come out of the same process. But what you're basically doing is that you are, as crude, I mean, when you talk about crude, look at crude diamond. Okay, it's a stone. Until you polish it, it becomes, it has more value. So what we're just simply doing is that we're taking raw rocks, okay, that has value, and then we're just throwing it away. And which is why we're now pricing against crude oil. Every other market that you've gone listed are markets that are valued. Deals are not made, based on just one commodity. Deals are made based on various. You talked about silver. Silver is not a primary metal. Okay, silver comes from lead. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, and you're able to extricate silver from lead or from galena, really. The real stone that carries it is called galena, all right? Because people are applying some, level of value processing to be able to separate these things. And so much with the other ones. So I think we're just still at that very base level of economy, selling crude. And again, sorry to say this, do you own the crude that you're selling? You've licensed somebody, okay, to operate, just like if you have a license to operate your radio station. Is it owned by MBA? Or whoever it is that's oversighting you? That's exactly what is happening. You can make profit, you can make losses. All you need to do is to keep paying those fees. And then when you have production sharing agreement, you now give your own, Nigeria gets its own share of that production. And I stand to be corrected, I don't think we've moved from the 400,000 barrels. Every other thing we get from the sale of the remaining of what we're selling to OPEC, okay, will now be, taxes. That's the truth. So if you think that we're selling 1.8 million barrels of crude and paying it into the coffers of government, that's unfortunately not the case.
All right, so we don't have enough time. So under 30 seconds, what structures do we need to create to transition into proper economic diversification?
Technology, more technology. Human capital, more human capital. The moment you have these two, you can begin to now lift your natural resources into products that can be competitive.
All right, thank you very much for that. Well, we've run out of time for today on the show, but please do come back again tomorrow and we'll have more discussions about the economic and the business world. So a big thank you to our guests in the studio. Thank you so much, Dr. Emeka, for being a part of the show, and to our viewers out there, thank you so much for joining us and watching the show. Do remember to follow us on our social media platforms. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Just look up Trust TV News and you definitely find us there. Well, my name is Chamun Dabeng. Come back again tomorrow. Let's talk numbers.